Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Hot, Humid Thursday afternoon at Chem 11:05 with your host, me, Dr. White. Hi, everybody. All right, we'll have to do, well, actually, we're going to get out early today. Yay. I hear all you saying. But anyways, all right, let me remind you that this morning, pretty early, I sent out the password for test number 4. I gotta get that finger fixed. Test number 4, and you have until 4 p.m. tomorrow to take test number 4 and upload it as a single PDF file. Before you upload it, make sure you check that your file has all your answers, please. A couple of you haven't, and luckily I'm nice. Don't tell anybody. But I contact those people and said, you're missing the last page or this page, and they got it to me. But check before you upload it. All right, let me remind you, next Tuesday is the deadline for the extra credit project. Before Tuesday, the end of the day, like next day or 2 or 3, email me with your project. I'll check it. And if there's something wrong, I'll let you know. Once you upload it to Blackboard, I'm going to grade it. And so do that. Another thing, Tuesday, end of the day, 11:55 p.m. is the deadline for the lab amnesty program. And really for all labs have to be handed in, uploaded to Blackboard. If after Tuesday they're not there, I haven't seen any, you'll get a 0. Now, I graded and uploaded just this morning. Well, I graded them yesterday and day before, labs 9, 10, and 11 for those who handed it on time. By Sunday afternoon, if not earlier, I will go back and check any labs that you haven't handed in. Did you already hand it in, or you handed it in late and sorted in? I just didn't grade it. And at that point, I will grade them, put the scores in Blackboard, and then by Sunday, I will send out an email saying, please check Blackboard. If you don't see a score for a lab you've handed in, email me so I can grade it, or let you find out what's going on and work that out. That way you'll get your points. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, by this Sunday, 1 p.m., I will have test 4 scores in Blackboard. By that time or sooner also, I will send out an individual email to each of you, like I've done in test 1, 2, and 3, for the points you receive for each answer on test number 4. Next Monday, I will go through test number 4 in our Zoom meeting. All right, let's talk about something else very important. All right, if you look on your screen, and this I sent out about an hour or 2 ago, about an hour and a half, and this is the final exam, Chem 11:05, final exam information. A week from today, next Thursday, the 3rd of August. Wow, it's already August. Where is the summer gone? Time flies when you're having fun with chemistry and Dr. White. But anyways, on Thursday, the 3rd of August, a week from today, I will be giving the final exam online. And just like the test, you'll be downloading a password-protected PDF file for the final exam from the assignment area Blackboard. On Thursday at 8 a.m. or earlier, like today, it was way earlier. I got up early, so I might as well send it out. I will send out an email, via email, the password for the final exam PDF file. Now, this is a slight change because of my personal schedule. You'll have until Friday, 2 p.m., not 4, 2 p.m., to finish the final exam and upload your final exam answers as a single PDF file the assignment area blackboard. The times when I've taught 11:05 face-to-face in a classroom, most students are done by within 60 to 75 minutes of taking the final exam. So I figure it'll take you about 70 minutes average, but if you need up to 3 hours, hey, take it. But be sure this is a different time. Get your answers uploaded by Friday, 2 p.m. Now, the final exam will cover all the material in this semester's Chem 1105 that I talked about. And the final exam has 27 problems, 8 pages. Some of the problems are multiple part. There are 5 multiple choice questions. Now, to break down the material by test, test number 1 material has 16 points. Test 2, which deals with moles and things like that, has 44 points. Test 3, 29. Test 4, 21. And that adds up to 210. So there's 10, 10, yes, 10 bonus points. As always, you'll need a scientific calculator, and I reserve the right to subtract up to 50 points. Anybody doesn't follow instructions or anybody who doesn't upload their final exam answers on time as a single PDF file. Now, a week from this Sunday or earlier, I will be posting your final exam scores along with your course grade in Blackboard. Now, the school's official system, which I will also enter your grade, sometimes takes up to 24 hours before you see it, but you'll be able to see it in Blackboard. And at that time, once I put everything in Blackboard, I'll send out an email, post an announcement, and send out an email that your final exam score, along with your Chem 1105 course grade, is in Blackboard. For the final exam, I don't send individual emails how many points you get, because when I teach it face-to-face, I don't hand back the final. I keep them, but I don't hand them back. Now, this is also important. Next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I will be spending the Zoom meetings going through and reviewing all the material for this semester. Again, next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I will go through all the material, review it, that you learned this semester. Which is one reason my students do really good on my final. The other is they listen to my advice. Now, since next Thursday, a week today, I'll be giving the final, there'll be no Zoom meeting because I've covered everything. I've finished. So there won't be one. And by the way, have a great rest of the week and weekend. All right, you all should have received some sort of email about student evaluations. I hope you all fill it out for me and this class. You like what I've done, or if you didn't like what I've done. Now, if you really like what I did this semester, please post something on ratemyprofessor.com. If you didn't really like what I did this semester, well, you can do the same thing. By the way, it's anonymous. I have no idea, both with the student evaluations, which I won't even see until sometime in, I would say, September, early October, and it will in no way have any effect on your grade. Also, same thing with ratemyprofessor.com. Now, if you really, really, really liked what I did, send an email to the president of COD and copy the board of trustees. Let's go somewhere. I think I still have it there. And if you look on the left here, you'll see important email addresses. And if you click on that, hold on, let me go into student view. I don't know if I've made this visible for you yet. Nope. hold on. Give me a second. I haven't done this. Where did I just lose you? All right, right after it says instructor, you'll see important email addresses. Let me open one of these up. And you'll see Dr. Caputo, who's the president of COD, and the email for the board of trustees. If you really, really like what I did, send them an email about it. Before you do, write it, let it sit overnight, and read it again. By the way, please address Dr. Caputo as Dr. Caputo, and don't start an email saying, hey, that's not professional. But that's if you really, really like what I did or really didn't like what I did, do that. All right, let's see. Is there anything else I should talk about coming up? Not really, other than, like I said, make sure you hand in test 4 by the deadline tomorrow. Make sure you hand in all your labs by the end of next Tuesday. Make sure you hand in, if you want, the extra credit project you want before Tuesday, email me it. And like one of your colleagues did this morning, had 1 or 2 things wrong, told him he corrected it, came back as it's okay. And I said, yeah, he's going to get 10 points. All right. Wow. Last chapter, new stuff. And that's chapter 11. And this deals with nuclear radiation. Now, most of this is going to be click, switches off. And on this page, click, switches off. But what's a radioactive element? It's an unstable isotope of an element that will emit energy spontaneously to form a more stable element. Now, what's an isotope? An isotope of an element is an element that has the same number of protons and same number of electrons, but have different amounts of neutrons. And those are isotopes. And some are stable and some are not stable. And the energy obtained from the isotope given off is called radiation. And that's emitted from a radioactive isotope, like uranium. Now, switch is still off. Nuclear chemists have different names for certain particles or energy. One is the alpha particle, and the alpha particle is energy or stuff that comes off a radioactive element, and it contains 2 protons and 2 neutrons. And like I said, it's emitted by a radioactive nuclei. And because it has no electrons, and each proton has a +1 charge, and each neutron has a 0 charge, it has a positive +2 charge. Now, there's also, again, click switches off, a beta particle. And this is a particle mass who's identical to an electron and is emitted by a radioactive nuclei. And I guess because the special case is coming from a radioactive nuclei or element, they just don't call it an electron. They gave it a special name. And this is one of those areas of chemistry. No, I did not work in the chemical industry. I didn't want to either. It's quite dangerous. Then there's a positron. It's a particle produced by an unstable nucleus that has a positive charge. Why don't they call it just a proton? Because it comes from an unstable nucleus. And finally, radiation that comes from an unstable or radioactive nuclei element is gamma rays. And gamma rays are just high energy radiation without mass or charge. How can that be? Well, light is radiation without mass or charge, and that's how it could be. By the way, this gamma ray will not turn you into the Hulk if you're Dr. Bruce Banner. For those who know the Hulk Marvel comics, that's how he got started. But in real life, I don't think it will turn you into the Hulk. All right. Now, when we talk about radioactive elements, there's something called radioactive decay. And again, switches off. That's the process where a radioactive nucleus element is transformed into the nucleus of another element as the result of the emission of radiation. And that radiation can be either alpha, beta particle, or gamma rays. Click, switches on. Now, there's something, a very important concept. And the reason I turn the switch on is this is something you should be aware of when people talk about nuclear energy plants, because this is a downside of nuclear energy plants that they don't talk about, at least the ones we have now. And that's the half-life of a radioisotope. And the rate, that is the rate of decay. The half-life, which is abbreviated T1/2, is the amount of time required for 1/2 of any given quantity of a radioactive substance to undergo decay and no longer is radioactive. So the half-life of different radioactive isotopes, the T1/2, is very important. Oops, guess what? I don't have my whiteboard open. I better open it. That's not my whiteboard. That's just Dr. White. All right, let's talk about half-lives. All right, let's look at the following. Element X has a half-life, T1/2, of 2 years. If you have 1,200 grams of X, then how much X will you have after 6 years? So we're trying to find grams of X after 6 years. And we're given the T1/2 equals 2 years. And you start out with 1,200 grams of X. Now, you can look up a formula to calculate this, but when it's even number like this, what is half-life? After that period of time, in this case, 2 years, you have half of what you started with. So if we start out with 1,200 grams, after 2 years, we'll have 600 grams. After another 2 years, we'll have half of this, 300 grams. And after another 2 years, total of 6, you'll have 150 grams. And that's how the half-life works. So what is a half-life? That is when you have half of the material gives off radiation, so it's no longer radioactive. And that's why they say you have half of it left, because it's changed the other half into something else. Notice 2, 4, 6. Each 2-year period, what you start with, you get half. Now, why is this important? Now, if you look on your screen, you'll see for uranium-238, the most common isotope of uranium used in some power plants, the half-life is, are you ready for this? 4.5 billion years. Yes, that's with a B, 4.5 billion years. So if you start out with 2 tons of uranium waste, it'll take 4.5 billion years before half of it's gone. Yes, billion years. So you've got all this waste from nuclear plants that you have to store for a long time until it's safe. Let's see if they have it for another one. Here's another one. Oh, it's shorter. It's not 4.5 billion years. It's this 700 million years. Oh, that's a lot shorter. Not. Now, the government a number of years ago came up with an idea. Luckily, it's no longer being considered. That why don't we take all the nuclear waste that's going to be around here for millions of years and store them safely in one place somewhere in the United States? And they picked a place where they thought it would be safe. It's not near any major, they sort of populated areas. Not really, but, and this was Yucca Flats in Nevada. And it's about 80 miles from Las Vegas Valley. That's a good choice. And billions of dollars were spent digging test tunnels. They were going to have this underground, all these different tunnels and storage. And what they did, they dug some. The other problem was, how do you store it? Well, they came up with a design. I'm trying to find a picture. No, I can't find it. These weren't it. Well, some of them were, but they had nicer containers how they were going to do it. And what they did was the government put some nuclear waste in these containers and test them out. And within about 2, 3 years, they were leaking. They're supposed to last for millions of years. They didn't. Finally, the outcry from people in Nevada, we don't want all this nuclear waste in our state. And the whole project was dropped. Now, what that means is there's a number of nuclear sites, power plants, that are storing a lot of their waste, nuclear waste, on site. Why? Because it's going to be around for millions of years. Now, unfortunately, nobody has found a way how to accelerate that, catalyze that so it's quicker. And what can I say? That's a problem. No, they say nuclear energy is clean. Until you look at the waste they keep, what do you do with the waste nuclear rods? Because they're going to be around for a million years. Now, that's my personal opinion, but that's my opinion. Now, 2 things you should know leaving my class: nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. Now, what is nuclear fission? It's the process in which large nuclei, something with a large radioactive element with a large atomic number, splits into smaller nuclei. And when it does this, it gives off free neutrons and a large amount of energy. And this energy is mainly in the form of heat. And where do we use that? You should know nuclear fission is used mainly in nuclear reactors. And they take large uranium and under conditions, which I'm not sure exactly, because that's not my area of expertise or I have really any hands-on knowledge in. And when it splits, it gives off a lot of energy, and they take that and take water, they heat up with that energy to make steam to drive a turbine that turns around and makes electricity. And here on your screen, in the blue on the right, this big thing where it says control rods, that's where you have the nuclear reaction. And this blue stuff is water that carries our fluid that carries heat to steam, and the steam drives a generator. Let's see, this is a better one. And then they pump this back here to the steam generator, and this is how nuclear energy is used to make electricity. But in the reactor, after a while, you've got to replace those rods, and they're now nuclear radioactive. They were when they went in too, and they'll be around for millions of years. Now, the other type of nuclear reaction I'd like to talk about is nuclear fusion. And that's the process in which small nuclei are coming together to make large ones. And that's also known as the chemistry behind the hydrogen bomb. Why? Because you slam 2 hydrogens together, more than 2, and that makes a larger one. And in the process, that makes a lot of energy. Now, where can you find nuclear fusion? The sun. The sun, because of the gravity, and here I'm out of my area of expertise, really out, takes hydrogen atoms, slams them together, and makes helium atom. And by doing that, it makes a lot of energy. I mean, a lot. Well, all you have to do is think about the sun. Let's do something. And by the way, for those of you who are comfortable with it, most of us are, what's the temperature on the surface of the sun? 10,340 degrees Fahrenheit. Whoa, that is hot. But its atmosphere is even hotter. And that heat, which you can see here pictures of the sun. And I invite you to look online, see some of these. All that heat is generated by hydrogen atoms slamming together to make helium atoms. And that's called fusion, nuclear fusion. Now, the question is, how do you know how can you tell examples or what's fission, what's fusion? And the way I remember it is the sun has a U, and that's fusion. And the other one doesn't have a U, fission, that's for reactors, nuclear reactors. And with that, I've finished all the new material, any material I'll cover in this class. But we've got some time today. Next Monday, remember, I'll go over test number 4 answers, and I'll start and do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the review for the whole semester. Now, before I go into some neat stuff I wanted to do today, now that you know some chemistry, I just want to point out that, and let me open them. Sorry about the delay. All right. First of all, I would recommend that you look in the lecture section of Blackboard under important information, final exam. This is the important information for the final exam that I will give you that you don't have to memorize, but you do need to know how to use. And a lot of this you should be familiar with. All right, that's one thing. Another thing that I will go through next week that I put in Blackboard are practice key problems for the Chem 1105 final exam. And here's the answers for that. And these are problems you should know how to do. Hint, these are problems you should know how to do. Also, the best way to study besides doing those problems for my final exam, you all have tests 1, 2, 3, and 4. You got to keep it. Go back and use those tests as practice problems. You can also do the practice problems for each chapter, but those will be the same thing. If you notice, the practice problems for the chapter are similar to the problems you saw on the test, which is why I call them practice problems. However, am I going to put the same problems from test 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the final? No. Am I going to put similar ones? Of course. So those would be good practice problems. All right. What I like to do now is I want to go over some stuff that I think might be useful to you now that you know some chemistry. The first one is when I was at one company, AkzoNobel, part of my job was I was one of the few research and development chemists that marketing and sales would take out to their customers to help them sell products. It's interesting. Salesman, well, you're just giving me sales garbage. But if you come with a PhD from R&D, research and development, you get instant credibility. No, I never lied or anything like that, but I had a credibility that our salesman never did, and the customers would listen to me. Well, one group of customers that one company I worked for, Akzo, were the petroleum companies, such as Shell, BP, also Mobil. And I got to go to their research centers because we made molecules that they use for additives in their gasoline. In fact, one time I got a call from the vice president of marketing and sales, got to be in a meeting tomorrow. This is urgent. So I went to the meeting, and with the plant manager from our largest plant was there, which was it still is in McCook, Illinois. That plant manager retired long ago. And we were told Mobil wants to buy this molecule from us. That's what they call the nitrogen in their gasoline. And they want to do a national rollout in 12 weeks. And we have to make, I think it was 6 million pounds in 12 weeks. That was a real not fun time to get that all done and made. And I was working with the plant manager to get that done. And we did. But because of that, I got to go to a lot of research centers for the major gasoline companies, petroleum companies, and I found out some interesting facts. And that is, for many decades now, the best gasoline is Shell. Mobil is almost as good. Shell is a little better, but Mobil is really close. The worst gasoline is BP. It used to be called Standard. And you don't want to, unless it's an emergency, I will never put BP in my car. Now, when you go to buy gasoline, you'll see the different octane numbers or grades. And unless you have a Ferrari, Lamborghini, or some really high-powered car, which I don't, I have an SUV, the lowest octane gasoline, the cheapest, I shouldn't say cheap, the least expensive, works all the time. Now, about 3 or 4 times a year, I run my tank, because I usually don't let it go below half. That's just my personal preference to feel comfortable. I take it down to a quarter, a little less than a quarter left. And then what I do twice. I fill it with the premium gasoline, the highest octane. Why is that the most expensive? Because that has the best additives. And if you do it a couple times a year, that helps protect your engine, your car engine, which is a good thing. Now, I'd like to show you something interesting. I don't know if I showed this to you. I don't think I might have, but I don't know. Anyways, there's a great website called www.chicagogasprices.com. Even though it says Gas Buddy right here, it's really chicagogasprices.com. And if you go to the search page, which is here, If you ever need this email link, or not email, a website link, email me and I'll send it to you. If you put in a zip code, then let's do one for Glen Ellen. You'll see all the different gasoline stations and recent prices. And the one I've gone to right by COD Glen Ellen is the Shell. Down the road, let's see, where is it? I don't see it here. There's a BP, which I would never use, and you can see different prices. Notice 4 hours ago, this was pretty low. It might have gone up. And the Thornton's on Roosevelt and Euclid is pretty low too. Now, if you come by my house in Schaumburg, you can see different ones and different prices, and they really vary a lot. This Shell is about a 7-minute drive from my house. This Mobil is about 3 or 4 minutes from my house. So if I want to save 19 plus 15, almost over 30 cents a gallon, I'll go to the Shell. Actually, it's more. Let's see, that's 28, 30, about 35 cents a gallon. That's that. And over the years I've been using this, I've found that you can save a lot of money. There's no rhyme or reason. I also teach in Elgin. And here the prices are, some are low. I don't, this McLean I've gone to, Shell, wow, they're pretty low. And you can go not that far away. This BP is, what's the differential? Almost 70 cents a gallon. That's a lot if you're putting in 15, 20 or 10, 20 gallons. So this is a great website, chicagogasprices.com, that you should consider. I use it all the time. Before I buy gasoline, I check where I'm driving or where I live here and what are the prices, and I can go to the lowest one. But like I said, I stay out of BP. Why? Another reason, besides working with the gas companies, gasoline companies, and finding out they thought BP is garbage, stinks. About 3 or 4 years ago, in the Gary, Indiana area, and Illinois area, right near Gary, Indiana, the border there in Illinois, BP refinery did something wrong and shipped really bad gasoline. How bad? Well, in the newspapers they had it destroyed. Are you ready for this? About 3,000 car engines, 3,000 people had their cars ruined from this bad gasoline. And they sued BP, and I'm sure, I hope they got their cars fixed and BP paid for that. And that was just one more thing that had said, nope, I'm not going to put it in my car. Now, if I look at the clock, this would be a good time to take a break. Let's take a 5-minute break, and I'll be right back after I get up and stretch. Time to get going. All right. Now, another thing I'd like to teach you about, and when I talked about the gasoline will never be on the final. What I'm going to talk about right now won't be on the final, but it's something you can use the rest of your life, and it deals with chemistry. Now, when I bought the house I'm in a long time ago, about a couple weeks after I moved in, my kitchen sink clogged up. So I called the Roto-Rooter or whatever, one of those like companies, come out and clean out my sink and the pipes. So the guy had that device, that Roto-Rooter thing, cleaned it out, and I thanked him. And they have I think it was 90 or 120-day guarantee warranty that if it clogs up, they'll come out free and fix it again. Well, within a week or so, it clogged up again. Now, I've always been very careful before I bought this house where I lived before, and this house, not to put any grease or other gunk down that scientific gunk, down the drain, because it will clog it up. And I had been very careful. My new house, why not? So the same guy comes out and he apologizes, cleans it out, it's open. I thanked him. And okay, I hope that's okay. A week and a half later, it clogs up again. I call him again. Now, I'm working a full-time job and I got to stay home to wait for this guy to show up. And I'm missing time. I'm salaried, six-figure at that company. Yep, that much. And I was missing time that I needed to get work done, missing meetings and things like that. So he comes and he apologizes again. And I said, well, just clean it out. And he said, first I'll roto-root it. And he did that. And he pulls up this gallon jug of this cleaner. And he puts some down. I said, can I see the label? He said, sure. I'm a surfactant chemist. I know this stuff. I looked at the label and essentially it was some soap and some water and some surfactants that's not going to knock out any grease, because that's probably the big thing that was clogging up my sink, probably from the previous owner. They weren't careful and they put a lot of grease, like you clean out a pot or pan with bacon grease in it, and it goes down the drain. No, you pour that out, let it cool, put it in a baggie, zip it up in your garbage, and then any other paper towel, wipe it out so you keep the grease minimum. Well, he does that, and lo and behold, a week or so later, it clogs up again. And at this point, I'd wasted more time than spending the money I did. I don't know, whatever it cost me, it wasn't worth calling him up again. So what did I do? I go, and I don't get any kickback from this company. I went to my local Home Depot, which I'm lucky, the one by my house, the people there for many, many years now are amazing, really nice, very knowledgeable. And I go into the area by the plumbing supplies and everything, and they've got this whole wall, at least 10 feet wide, 5 or 6 shelves high, full of different drain cleaners. And I pick up a couple and what do I buy? And a nice gentleman who works there in that area comes over and says, can I help you? I said, yeah. I said, of all these drain cleaners, which one do the plumbers buy? And just like that, I mean, that fast, he says, this one. Which one was that? Well, let's take a look. And the one he pointed to was, real clever name, hair and grease drain opener. And it's in this black bottle. And back then, I don't know if I haven't bought it in a while because I keep a bottle in my house. And since I've been using this, I think in the last 25 years, I've used it 3 times or 2 times because I'm careful. It's in a Ziploc bag, thick one. And on the Ziploc bag on the outside, big red letters, it says, wear eye protection and gloves when using it. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but when you read the ingredients on that label, it's got potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. Now, if you look at the other drain cleaners, all the other ones, and I'd already picked up a number of bottles, they all had hydrochloric acid. So this one, the hair and grease remover, had base. The others were acid. So I asked the guy, is this good? He said, yeah. I said, oh, I see the difference. It's got base. He said, no, that's an acid. I said, no, potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, that's the base. He said, no, it's an acid. And told him, look, I have a PhD in synthetic organic chemistry, and trust me, I know the difference between acid and base. He said, no, that's an acid. All of a sudden it dawned on me, why am I arguing or chemistry, basic, that's a pun included, but chemistry that I know I'm right with the guy who helped me out in Home Depot. And never again have I argued chemistry in Home Depot. I thanked him, took it home, used it, where they said, use so much, I upped the level, let it sit in there for X minutes. I doubled that because it gave it more time. It breaks down the fat, so it will go down your drain. And for about 10 years afterward, it was fine till it clogged up again, not that bad like the first time. And I had some of that, more down the drain like that. And about a year ago, it did it again. I've been here over almost 25 years in this house. Wow, time flies when you're in a nice house. But that stuff works. It also works in the bathroom for hair that clogs up the sink. Hair breaks down by acid or base, reacts to smaller pieces. I teach that in Chem 1212, organic chemistry, and I'm not teaching that in the fall here, but at Elgin Community College, I'll be teaching Chem 170 online, same course, and I teach about that, the actual chemistry. And over the years, I've told this story, and I've had students come back to me and thank me. You know how much we save by not having to call a plumber or someone? That stuff is amazing. In fact, even my brother-in-law used it. My sister at that time had 4 sheepdogs that she kept in full coat, which means there was hair everywhere. I mean, everywhere. If you've ever seen a sheepdog in full coat. And this is back when they were a lot larger size. My favorite one, I've missed her dearly, Misty, was really my dog. Whenever I walked in that house, she never left my side. She weighed about 110 pounds. Huge, looked like a little bear, a big bear actually. But that stuff works great. All right, let me tell you some more practical things that I think you'd enjoy knowing. My father, who was a pharmacist, loved chemistry and gave me my first chemistry book when I was about 8.5 or so. Wonder why I became a chemist. I don't know. And he loved to cook. And my father's generation, men didn't cook, but he did. I never asked him, where'd you get this love of cooking? Sorry, I wish I should have, and I have 2 sisters and I had a mother. And so on Sundays, sometimes he'd plan and he'd say, this Sunday, it's men cooking in the kitchen only, and I'd help him cook. And one of the things he liked to make, we had a big deep chest freezer, would be a big pot of spaghetti sauce that would freeze in quart containers. And my mother liked that because take a couple out the night before and use it for dinner. Well, I don't know how he learned this, but he told me the secret, and I'll tell you the secret. One, the best thing near the end, he would put, and we had a big pot, we're talking a couple of gallons, about a tablespoon and a half of baking powder. Why that? Well, let's look at the chemistry. What's in spaghetti sauce? Tomatoes. We'd crush our own and make it, and also use some of the tomato paste. Contadina back then was the best. I think it still is. And tomatoes have citric acid. That's why if you ever have a canker score and you have ketchup on French fries, oh, does that burn? Well, this is an acid. And when you add sodium bicarbonate, which is in baking powder, you get a neutralization reaction to make a salt. Plus water plus carbon dioxide, which is given off in the gas. And you see these bubbles. And what happens is, this is a base. Hopefully you knew for today's test, the pH scale. And tomatoes have a pH that's acidic. By adding the base, you neutralize some of the acid, increase the pH enough so it tastes milder. And it works. Now, the other real secret, which I don't know how my father found out, you ever make your own spaghetti sauce or marinara sauce, really spaghetti sauce, and you go, that doesn't taste like the really good Italian restaurants I go to. What's missing? Well, it turns out you put a little, are you ready for this? Cinnamon in there too. Now, in a 3-gallon pot, you'd put maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of cinnamon. That's 3 gallons, just a pinch, or more than a pinch. I had a friend of mine I told that secret to, and he had a small pot. He put a tablespoon of cinnamon. Boy, too much. He called me up and said, what's this with the cinnamon? I can't even taste the tomatoes. All I can taste is the cinnamon. How much did you make? Oh, about 2 quarts. How much cinnamon? A tablespoon. You should have just put a little pinch. And those two make the, and you put other seasonings and all that, but that's the secret he taught me. Now, over the years, I've told students about this. And a couple of years ago, I had a student, after a couple of weeks after I told this, in Chem 1212, I teach it a lot earlier when we cover carboxylic acids like citric acids. And she came to me and said, after class one day, I'd like to thank you for sharing your father's secret for spaghetti sauce. And my father thanks you. And I said, oh, well, I'm glad you like it. And she said, you don't know why I'm thanking you. I said, no, I don't read minds. Let me know. Tell me. And she said, my father and I both suffer very badly from acid reflux. That's where your stomach acid comes up, I guess your esophagus. I'm a chemist, not a doctor. At one company, I knew another manager who had it so bad he had to have an operation to fix something. He was always in pain, real pain. And it was sad. Well, anyway, she said, thank you. My father-in-law love spaghetti and meatballs with spaghetti sauce, but we would suffer so badly because of all the acid in the tomatoes and the tomato sauce. And that would burn really bad in our esophagus. And, we'd have bad acid reflux from it. And she said, by adding the sodium bicarbonate, the baking powder at the end, it brought up the pH and it wasn't that acidic and we could eat it now. So thank you. And I thanked her for telling me that story. So if you want to make the best spaghetti sauce, put just a pinch of cinnamon and put a small amount of baking powder. Now, if you're going to do that, cut back on the salt, because this right here is a salt that your tongue and brain say, oh, that's like table salt. It's different than sodium chloride, but it still gives a salty taste to it. So we always cut back a little on the salt. Now, again, try it, but don't do too much. Put a little in, and you'll see it bubble up and get white on top. That goes away. and taste it. You may want to put a little more, but do a little in and then bring it up. Boy, what part of China did you learn bolognese sauce? I'm being facetious. Ah, oh, really? Well, good. Next, try matzo balls. That's very epic. All right. Now, another story about Dr. White and chemistry. Unfortunately, in my family, it's hereditary, and I didn't get it from, I got it too. We have bad dental problems in our family. It's hereditary. And I had trouble with my gums. I went like this. Oh, that hurts. And I was going to this great dentist, and there's this mouthwash you buy with a prescription that's really expensive that worked. Well, anyways, he had to retire, and I was in between dentists, hadn't found a new one, and I ran out of that mouthwash, and my gums, ouch, were starting to hurt. So I figured, all right, let me look at the mouthwash. And I said, oh, it's this mouthwash. So I went to my local big box store, Walmart. I only go in there about 5 or 6 times a year. I don't go in there that often, but they had a big wall of mouthwash. And there are two main types, the Listerine and the Scope. So I figured, all right, let me buy some Listerine. I've heard it on TV. I'll try it and see if it works like the prescription. Nope, didn't work at all. Ouch. And I said, all right, let me go back there. And being an organic chemist, I can read ingredients labels and know what I'm looking at. In the other type, the Scope type, it's show and tell time. The Walmart equivalent is half the price and the same quality. And I don't get any kickbacks from Walmart. I bought this. And I've looked at the label before I bought it, and I hadn't really looked closely at the Listerine. And Listerine, the key chemical that helps kill bacteria in your mouth, is a phenolic compound, a certain type of compound. Now, in the Scope type, the key thing is the pyridinium, where is it? Acetylpyridinium chloride, which is a quaternary ammonium salt, which I'm an expert in. And that also does a job of killing germs and certain bacteria. So I bought this. Now the Listerine didn't help. I use this. Guess what? No more problem with my gums. And I've been buying it ever since. Now, like I said, a number of the Walmart equivalents are just as good quality as the name brand and about half the price. So read labels, it helps. Now, I think you're all familiar with different types of hand lotion. And if you read the ingredients, the first ingredient is always water. It's water. And then you'll see molecules that are long, large organic molecules. Are you ready for this? With a nonpolar tail and a polar head. They're not really soaps, but they're long nonpolar. And most of the key molecules that come from hands that go into moisturizers and hand creams, unless it says it on the label, which this tells me in the back it's not saying that, comes from animal fats and maybe vegetable oils, but usually tallow, beef fat, and yellow grease and white grease, pig's fat. I know, I worked in that industry in a couple different areas of it. We sold to companies these molecules. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't get grossed out. By the time they use it, it's been so many times different process. It's not any fat, beef fat, or anything left in there. But you didn't know a lot of the stuff you put on your hair, on your skin, comes from beef fat and pig's fat. Oh, one of your colleagues just mentioning about cooking things here. Some people don't like to cook. I do because of my father. I'm a really good cook. By the way, if you meet an organic chemist and they say they're not a synthetic organic chemist and they say they're not a good cook, they're either lying to you if they say also they're a good organic chemist. Because if you're a good synthetic organic chemist, you're a good cook. Every synthetic organic chemist I've ever known who's good or synthetic organic chemist is a good cook. All right. Now, there's another thing I'd like to talk about, and that is I was raised by my parents to be socially responsible, help people out. Uh, just that's my personality and also the way I was raised. A number of years ago, there was a awful, awful environmental catastrophe that happened in the Gulf of Mexico. And what I'm talking about is the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And this was with BP, but that's not why I don't buy BP gas, but still. And this happened in the Gulf of Mexico. And they claim here that 210 million gallons of oil, crude oil, were discharged, escaped from that oil well. I did calculations years ago based on some numbers they had released, what was the hourly release, and it was a lot higher than that number. Either way, that was not good. Now, if you saw pictures of that, you could see the oil floating on top. It's less dense than water. And it was just oil, pools of oil. And what BP did is they found a product made by a company here, actually, at that time headquartered in Nalco, that would disperse the oil throughout the water. And that company, Nalco, which is now owned by a French company, but still goes under the Nalco division, their product was Corex 995, I think 25 or 9515. And I'm thinking, they're putting millions of pounds of this dispersant, a couple million pounds in the Gulf of Mexico to disperse the oil. How safe is that chemical? Well, guess what? You know how to look up the material safety data sheet. And I looked it up for Corex, and I saw the different ingredients. And there was one ingredient, because I'm a synthetic organic chemist, not just a synthetic organic chemist, an industrial synthetic organic chemist. And I said, well, how bad is that? And that's epoxyethanol. Let's see if I can find it. If you see on your screen, I have another number of companies. I can look up the MSDS sheet. Let's try this one. I've never looked at this company's one. And here it is. And you'll see acute oral toxicity. 4, that's bad. Animal dermal toxicity. 4, that's really bad. Inhalation, 4. Skin corrosion, pretty high. Eye damage, somewhat high. It's dangerous stuff. Avoid breathing dust and all that. And this is really bad. Now, this one is a newer MSDS sheet. The older ones had what type of hazard to health, humans, and different types of animal life, marine and other creatures. And this one doesn't have the symptoms the older ones did. Well, being the socially responsible person I am, who's now a socially responsible industrial synthetic organic chemist, I saw that. And immediately I was able, through some time, finally get and talk to the #2 person who was in charge of the Coast Guard's effort to help clean that up. I told that person, this is bad stuff. This is going to cause a catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico, and also the people are trying to clean it up. Said, no, our chemist said it's not that bad. I said, who's your chemist? Let me talk to him. Well, he gave me the name of this nice gentleman who was nothing negative, but an academic chemist who was an analytical chemist who had no industrial experience whatsoever. He said, oh, it's not that bad. I said, it is. Well, I tried calling back that #2 guy and he blew me off. You're wrong. So I don't give up. What I did was I called up MSNBC. I called up the New York Times. I called up a couple other TV stations, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who did that. And the news organizations finally came out with, is this stuff safe? We're hearing it isn't. And they finally got the EPA to stop that. But they already dumped or used a couple million pounds of that dispersant, and dumping not only the oil was in the ocean there, the water, this toxic chemical, lots of it. Well, let's fast forward to about, let's see, when was that? About 10 years later, I happened to read an article about somebody writing about how some of the people who were on boats that and also helped clean up the beaches had symptoms got sick from doing that and still are fighting it. So I saw the name of that reporter and I called them up and I explained what I just did, what I did, and corrects it. And he said, we've heard about that. And he said, here's someone I'm going to have call you. And it turned out it was another reporter who was also one of the people who actually volunteered to go out in boats to help clean up the area and also the beaches. And I talked with him and he told me a very sad story. And that was that a lot of the people who were involved in the cleanup, because their exposure to that dispersant with the butoxyethanol chemical in it that was hazardous and dangerous to anything alive, they had the same symptoms that was in the MSDS that I read back to him. And they should have stopped that immediately, and they didn't. And that's the bad side of chemistry. And with that, I'm done for today. I'm done for the week. Don't forget to hand in your test on time tomorrow. Don't forget, next Monday, I will go through test number 4 on our Zoom meeting. I'll cut it out, but I'll post it as a separate private video that I'll send out an email with the link, URL link to see that if you're not here today. Also, on next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I will do a review of the whole semester that will help you. But do the practice problems like you've done all semester. Use your tests 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which you have copies of, and you can look up the answers on the links to the videos that are still on YouTube. They're private, but you got those emails. If not, let me know and I can dig it up and find those again. And don't forget, there's a final exam practice problems that I highly recommend you do And I'll go through some of those next week too. And with that, I'm going to leave a little early today because I'm done. And I'll say, Gang gesund. Goodbye now.